guided. A third example of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yet another example is when Ibrahim said, "My Rabb, show me how you give life to the dead." He replied, "Have you no faith in this?" Ibrahim humbly submitted, "Yes, but I asked this to reassure my heart." Allah said, "Take 4 birds, cause them to incline towards you." Meaning train. You know when people train birds and they train them to come back to them, like they have eagles, pigeons, or I think eagles as well people train. That they fly away and then they make a noise and the bird can hear, and from far distance the bird comes back. So Allah told Ibrahim a.s., train them to follow your direction. Cut them into pieces and scatter those pieces on hilltops. Then call them back. Allah will bring them back to life and they will come to you right away. Then know that Allah is Almighty, All-Wise. So Ibrahim a.s. did what he was told, trained the birds, then he cut them up, basically killed them, and scattered them over 4 hilltops. When he called out, Allah caused all the birds to come back to life and come flying back to Ibrahim a.s. And Ibrahim a.s. immediately accepted that you indeed can bring the dead back to life. What is this third story showing us of Ibrahim a.s.? Again, when he saw the evidence, he was guided. But another point that this story brings forward for us is that the whispers of shaitan can come to anyone, or that doubtful whispers can come to any person. Now, Ibrahim a.s. never doubted Allah, and he never doubted resurrection, but he just wondered how. And this can occur to anyone, where you wonder, I wonder how this is going to happen, or I wonder how that could be. And this was the way that Ibrahim a.s. was questioning, because when Allah said to him that, "Do you not have faith?" he said, "Yes, I do, but I just want reassurance of my heart." And is this not something that we all seek as well? Just a reassurance. Just to reassure my heart that yes, this is going to happen, or yes, this is possible, or yes, this is the right thing to do. Now, Ibrahim a.s. was shown clearly that this is how it is going to happen, and his heart was reassured. For us, what is the lesson? At a time when we need reassurance, again, at a time of maybe a crossroads in life, a time of making a decision, a time of change when we don't know whether to choose one option or the other. We don't know what's going to happen next. Sometimes it's out of our control. We don't even have the choice. The choices are being made for us. At that time, ask Allah to reassure your heart. Make that connection with Allah firm, and Allah's help will come. It does come. Now, Ibrahim a.s. was a prophet of Allah, and his iman and faith was greater than the ordinary person's. So for him, the reassurance was in the same way. But for us, if we ask Allah, you reassure my heart, something will come to show us as well, and to reassure us that this is the right path, or the right opportunity, or the right way to do things. But the help of Allah comes, Allah tells us, for those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah. So give, and then you will receive. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة. The parable of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is that of a grain. أنبتت 7 سنابل, and it sprouts into 7 ears. في كل سنبلة 100 حبة, and each one bringing forth 100 grains. وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ, and Allah gives manifold increase to whom He wishes. وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and Allah is all-sufficient for His creatures' needs and all-knowing. Here Allah says that the example of someone who spends in the way of Allah is being compared to a grain. When the grain is planted, then the wheat comes out of that, and Allah tells us 7 ears, and then in those 7 ears are 100 more grains. So what is this telling us? One can lead to hundreds. One good deed, one act of spending can lead to hundreds of rewards. Increase in rewards. And it can lead to a huge amount of benefit for other people. But what is the condition for this to be the case? Allah says, fi sabilillah, those who spend in the way of Allah. The scholars say this can mean for the deen of Allah. The way of Allah is either for the deen of Allah or for the sake of Allah, meaning sincerely for Allah. So those who spend for the deen of Allah, or they spend sincerely for Allah's sake, these are the ones who will have this increase. So basically the ayah is telling us, whoever does something with sincerity, he might just do one thing. It might be a small thing, but if it's done for the sake of Allah with sincerity, it can bring huge reward for that people and a great amount of benefit. And you might have noticed that. You might have seen that somebody's done something very small. It doesn't even seem like a big deed, but it seems to be bringing khair more and more. Over time, it's continuously bringing khair for that person, bringing good for that person. Or in the unseen, somebody's done something small, nobody else will realize, but Allah has seen such sincerity and He's increasing the reward for that person manyfold, again because of the sincerity. So this is the example that Allah gives us when it comes to spending. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Those who spend their wealth in the cause of Allah, ثُمَّ لَا يُتْبِعُونَ مَا أَنْفَقُوا مَنًّا وَلَا أَذًى. And then do not follow their charity with reminders of their generosity or injure the feeling of the recipient. They shall get their reward from their Rabb. They shall have nothing to fear or to grieve. Allah tells us more about spending. And He says those who spend in the way of Allah, then once they have spent, they don't remind of the generosity. They don't remind of the good they have done. And they don't hurt the person who they have given. These are two very important points that Allah has told us here. That when you spend, don't remind the fact that you have spent. And this can be literally spending money, that you've spent money on someone, or it could be time, effort, anything else that you've given to someone. So once you've done that, don't then remind the person that you've done this for them. Or don't hurt the person afterwards. Why would somebody do that? Why would someone spend or do good for someone, make an effort for someone, and then remind them that, look, this is what I did for you, or hurt that person afterwards? Sometimes it's a simple case that people remind of the favor or the charity or cause injury because they feel they weren't appreciated. It's not been acknowledged that I did this. I haven't been appreciated. I did all of this, I gave all of this, and I don't see appreciation in return. I don't see this person doing things for me. I don't see this person showing me a lot of gratitude. And this is what Allah is telling us. And when this happens, either you remind directly, a person reminds that, I did this and this for you, and this is how you responded to me, this is what you're doing, or, have you forgotten that I've done all this? Or, if a person doesn't directly say it, then somehow or other, they say something hurtful to that person. It comes out in words. It comes out in our behavior, in our actions towards others. Because when you feel that way towards someone, if you don't say it directly, it comes out in other ways. Which is why Allah says, don't remind or injure the feeling. Mannan wala adhan. Man in Arabic is to directly remind of the favor. Adhan is to cause hurt in some way. So Allah says, don't do good, and then afterwards start saying you didn't appreciate, or just say something hurtful, or be hurtful to that person, because you feel you didn't even respond to the charity that I gave. You didn't respond to the good that I did for you. You haven't acknowledged and appreciated it. And Allah says that they should feel, if they don't do this, then their reward is with Allah. But if they do, then where did they want their reward to be from? If you remain silent and don't do this, then you are hopeful of the reward from Allah. But if not, then you expected something from a person. What quality does a person need to not say to someone, don't you appreciate me? Look what I did for you. Or what quality is needed to not hurt the person who you did something good for? Yes, sabr, patience is needed. This is sabr. We wonder sometimes, so where does this magic word sabr, how do I apply this in my life? This is sabr, this is patience. That you didn't get a response, I'm not going to say anything to the person, and I'm not going to behave in a way that that person feels from me that I don't like the fact that they haven't responded. So it takes sabr and patience to remain silent and to expect the appreciation to come from only Allah. And another thing that I was noting was, Allah says they shall have nothing to fear or to grieve. What happens when we're not appreciated? What happens to people? They fall into grief. The sadness, this grief, I wasn't appreciated. My life, I haven't been appreciated. Again, Allah says, if you don't expect from the person, you won't fall into grief. Just expect from me, and what He has is far more than any person can give you. What's the most a person's going to do for us? Say thank you very much, give us something in return. Is that comparable to what Allah will give? It's not. He's telling us, I'll increase it hundreds of times, much more than a person can give. For someone who doesn't remind, doesn't hurt, it shows that they're living with a certain amount of dignity, and that becomes apparent as well in their behavior. قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ يَتْبَعُهَا أَذًى. Kind words and forgiveness are better than charity followed by injury. وَاللَّهُ غَنِيٌّ حَلِيمٌ. And Allah is self-sufficient and forbearing. قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ, meaning saying something kind and good. Speaking in a kind manner, a good manner to someone is better, and being forgiving towards a person is better than giving charity and then following it by injury, by saying something hurtful or doing something hurtful. So if you're not able to give, maybe you're in a situation where you can't give, then it's better that you just say kind words. Or if you know that if I give here, I'm really going to mind if I'm not appreciated, I'm not going to be able to control myself, then the better thing to do is say good words and refrain from giving at that time. We should always give, but Allah is telling us it's better if you just be good and forgive other people's mistakes rather than you give and then follow it by being hurtful to other people. It's better to speak nicely, speak well to other people. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. O believers, do not make your charity worthless by reminders of your generosity or by injury to the recipient's feelings. Again, Allah has repeated the same thing again. Why? Because it's so important. And why? Because we fall into it so much. So again, Allah tells us, لا تبطلوا. Now He says, don't waste what you have done by causing hurt or by reminding. كَالَّذِي, like him who spends his wealth to be seen by people and believe neither in Allah nor in the last day. So don't do this like the one who spends in just to be seen by people. So what is it that causes people to not do sincerely for Allah? Riya, showing off to people. Here Allah says, do not make your charity worthless by reminders of your generosity or by injury to the recipient's feelings, like him who spends his wealth to be seen by people. So riya, showing off, not having sincerity, is what makes a person seek appreciation from others. Not having sincerity is what makes a person injure the feelings of somebody else. Because if someone did for the sake of Allah, then does it matter how anyone responds to you? When you do it for Allah, it doesn't matter if they're nice to you, it doesn't matter if they appreciate or acknowledge, you are above that. You don't care because the one you did it for, He's already seen what you have done. So the reason people do this is, Allah tells us, because of lack of belief or weak belief in Allah and the last day. His parable is like a hard barren rock covered with a thin layer of soil. A heavy rain falls, leaving it just a bare stone. Such people will not gain any reward that they thought they had earned. Allah does not guide the unbelievers. So Allah gives the example that such people, it's like a barren rock. Can you grow anything on a rock? So there's nothing gained. There's no reward gained because it was never for the sake of Allah.